Hello and welcome to the UploadVR Awards 2021. We announced our nominees live on YouTube a couple of days ago, and you can find the list over at UploadVR.com. I'm Zeena and I'll be your host, and with me, as always, Jamie Feltham.
Put on my best virtual hoodie for this very special event.
We didn't get dressed up really, did we? Oh gosh.
Not really possible, I guess. But
how embarrassing. We have got 14 categories with 47 entries ranging from gaming to hardware, but of course only one entry from each category can win. This has been a great year for VR, so let's get into it and see which games or headsets or experiences made it so. Starting with Best Competitive Multiplayer Game. The nominees are Larcenauts, Hyperdash, Loco Dojo Unleashed, Ragnarok, and Gorilla Tag. And the winner is Gorilla Tag. Congratulations, very much deserved.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think the reaction to this one, some people are going to be like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
And some people are going to be like, yeah, that is absolutely deserved. And obviously, given that we've given it the award, we're on the, yeah, that is absolutely deserved side. It is true that Gorilla Tag, as you know, any game of this kind really has done, has attracted a kind of younger audience, which for some others can impair their enjoyment of the game. But also, I don't want that to detract from the sheer ingenuity and physicality of the game. And it's very true that Gorilla Tag got so popular because it is such a great idea. And it just completely makes use of VR. And even though I was a big fan of a lot of competitive games this year, Larcenauts is one of my personal favorite games of the year for sure. I think it's important to recognize just the kind of landmark success Gorilla Tag has seen in 2021.
Absolutely. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most comprehensive game, you know. It can be something as simple as tag and you are monkey. And that's why it's won. Congratulations again.
Easiest way for our primitive brains to understand. Tag monkey, there we go.
Done. Moving on to Best Co-op Multiplayer. The nominees are After the Fall, DEMEO, A Township Tale, Legendary Tales, and Warplanes World War I Fighters. The winner is DEMEO. Congratulations. Very, very well deserved. And this title has garnered much love from the VR industry and the VR audiences.
Yeah, and this was, I think
Easily
this is probably...
so.
Sorry?
Easily so.
Yeah, well, I think this is probably the most hotly contested category in the whole thing, though, right? Because we also had After the Fall, which I was strongly considering voting for. And we also had Township Tale, which is a game that's really, really built on a fantastic, deep co-op experience. And I personally actually assumed that Township Tale might win this one when we came up with these categories. But as we spoke to each member of staff, it just became clear that, you know, DEMEO is something that, as a team, it's probably actually the only one as a team that we've all shared together as a cooperative experience. Whereas, you know, Township, me and you have played a lot of. After the Fall, I've played with various other members of the team, but it's the only one that everyone at Upload I've played with at some point. And that is because it's just such a great experience to dive into. And it's so immersive, and you really, not just you really feel like you're having a shooter experience with someone, but you really feel like you're there with those other people, having the kind of co-op experience you would around a normal table. And I think that's absolutely key to the experience.
Like you said, it comes down to how easy it is for it to be a social experience, and this very much deserves the win.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Moving on to Best Experience. So we're kind of moving away from games. They could be films, they could kind of be games, but more interactive experiences. The nominees are BATTLESCAR, Madrid Noir, Goliath, Sentenced, and Welcome to Respite. The winner is BATTLESCAR, which, to be honest, if you've tuned into the VR Games cast week after week, this was kind of an obvious one.
Yeah, I absolutely adore this movie. And we've adored this movie for a while. We first saw it in, I want to say 2019. So it's been a long, long time coming. And it's just, you know, if you go into it with the right expectations, which that it is very much a short film, it's a 30-minute thing. But you know, you're given this wide range of incredible storytelling styles that really speak to mixing up VR every couple of seconds, giving you something new to admire and something new to take in, rather than just, you know, a standard story where you're kind of sitting there and thinking, okay, this is great, but why can't I reach out and interact? You're never really given that chance in BATTLESCAR because it is just so, it's like almost distracting. Like there's something new to see and like play with every couple of minutes. And it's just a fantastic half an hour that really shows you what storytelling in this medium can look like.
That's so true. It's almost like, how can we make up a story to fit all these amazing design ideas rather than how do we fit this great story we have into VR?
Yeah. Yeah, and Rosario Dawson gives a great performance. The story, if you don't know, is about, you know, like the kind of New York punk scene in the 70s, I believe. And it's gritty and filthy and grown up. It's not, you know, your usual maiden quill and all happy and smiley and they go find the lost bunny or something like that. It's a very genuinely grown-up VR movie. And it's on Quest, it's on Steam VR, and I 100% recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it already.
Great. All right, let's move on to best updated game. Which games have had the best updates this year? It could be older games, it could be current games from this year. The nominees are Space Pirate Trainer DX, Pistol Whip, Golf Plus, Waltz of the Wizard, Blast On, and Cubism. And the winner is Waltz of the Wizard.
Kind of, I mean, very much deserved, right? Like, the entire point of Waltz of the Wizard, since it first released years and years and years ago now, was that it was just something that developer Alden was going to build on in many, many different ways. And that's not just new content, which is certainly there, but new features on the Quest platform specifically, and taking advantage of those in the best ways. And that extends to just even this week, it got, you know, voice interaction with characters and things like that. So it's really a great test bed of really amazing new VR, interesting mechanics. And we're seeing them implied, you know, like we read about these things in blog posts and we think, oh, that's a cool feature that will be great one day. But Waltz of the Wizard is one of the few places that genuinely always updates to actually show you what those things are going to end up looking like. So more than just a gameplay experience is about very much keeping up with the bleeding edge of VR as well.
Yeah, they're always several steps ahead of many other games. Although that's not to say that these other updates were not worthy. For example, Golf Plus. It just created a whole new game for itself, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a category that's going to be all the more important going into future years because it's, you know, Pistol Whip has made it its lifeblood. I don't think I've seen any game with as long-term support as something like Pistol Whip or Waltz of the Wizard when it comes to traditional gaming, right? Like, there's such a laser focus from these developers on what they want to deliver and how they want to keep growing it into these massive experiences. And I do think it was a hotly contested thing where you could have made an argument for pretty much anyone, but I think it was the focus on new tech that really won it for Waltz.
Absolutely. So congratulations again to Waltz of the Wizard. Moving on, the next category is Best DLC. The nominees are Beat Saber, Music Packs, Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, Last Call, Jurassic World Aftermath Part 2, and Walkabout Mini Golf, New Courses. The winner is Beat Saber with its music packs. They have absolutely knocked it out of the park this year. Incredible amounts of content, and you know, not only new content, it's mainstream content that they bring into VR.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean that's really the point of it, right? Is that this was the year, and to some extent, some of 2020 as well. But this really was the year that Beat Saber started doing that kind of Guitar Hero / rock band level of notoriety, right? Of just Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, the larger label tapes, and then of course, kind of going back to its roots with some of the original soundtrack updates they've made as well.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, this category right now, we talk about hotly contested categories, but this one really isn't. Like, this category is almost made for Beat Saber in a way, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Congratulations to Beat Saber. Moving on, as we have said during the nominee announcement, this is a very subjective category, so it was quite hard. Most immersive moment. Nominees are Traffic Jams, your first car crash. Unplugged, your first solo. A Township Tale, chopping trees and crafting backpacks. Floor Plan 2, joining puzzle. I Expect You to Die 2, behind the stage. And Arashi Castles of Sin, petting Haru. And the winner is Arashi Castles of Sin, petting Haru. This was so popular that I believe you wrote a whole article just on how great that experience was.
Yeah, it really is. Like, you know, there's this whole Tide thing about joking, oh, and it has a good boy, or it's, you know, it's got a dog. You can't beat a dog or whatever. But it really is an incredible moment when you first meet Haru and Arashi, of just kind of looking into this kind of beady-eyed adoration that the character or the animal has for you. And then the kind of like fluffy texture they get out of her fur, and the way she responds when you play games. And you can tell, I mean, the developers at Endeavor One actually spent time with real wolves up in the Pacific Northwest, I think, like learning how to create these behaviors. And it's my favorite part of the game, for sure. It's just a really, really immersive, heartfelt moment, and it absolutely pays off all the work they put into that element of the game, for sure.
Yeah, you have this really strange connection considering the tracking on PlayStation VR when you actually come to meet the dog or, you know, the wolf. It's incredible. It was at when you first tried the game, you called me over and you were like, you have to try this. And I thought, oh, classic Jamie. He loves animals. This will be fine. But it was incredible. Yeah.
It's like, as soon as we get like haptic feedback support that actually stops my hand and can make a connection with something in VR, I'm going straight back into Arashi to pet her properly. Yeah, really, really incredible. It's also worth pointing out, this very nearly went to Unplugged and soloing.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that Unplugged is going to get some recognition coming up. Not to spoil things too much.
Ooh, spoilers.
Yeah.
Well, next up, most innovative VR design. The nominees are Carve Snowboarding, Unplugged, Puzzling Places, Hand Physics Lab, Gorilla Tag, and Eye of the Temple. The winner is Unplugged.
Oh, I did spoil it. Again, but kind of an interesting one where we did kind of go back and forth a bit. Because you could make the argument, yeah, Unplugged is just Guitar Hero, but when you specifically talk about the Quest version of the game and implementing the hand tracking is such a great idea, because at the end of the day, Guitar Hero and Rock Band both died out because you had to have giant plastic peripherals taking up loads of space in your living space.
And they deteriorated over time.
Yeah, and they deteriorated over time, and they got clicky, and yeah, and everything like that. This kind of completely does away with that while speaking to, you know, kind of, I hate to say it, but like the kind of art form of air guitar. And it just, there were so many elements of it you thought were going to go wrong. So it's not just that it's using hand tracking to do something interesting and new, but also the fact that it just works. I think if like, you know, if it'd been a buggy game, it would have got, you know, obviously a much worse review score, but obviously I don't think we would have really considered it for this category as well. Mm-hmm. But it speaks to just how much it surprised us, how much it works, that this ended up winning, I think.
I remember first time playing this, I took off my headset and I was like, this is a killer app. I hate that term so much, but I was like, oh God, this is a killer app for the Quest 2.
Yeah.
100%.
It's lot of family members going to be trying this out over the Christmas break for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on is Hidden Gem. Nominees are Carve Snowboarding, MARE, Vanishing Grace, Eternal Starlight, Arcsmith, Crashland, and Eye of the Temple. And the winner is MARE.
Yeah, this is great. This was a category to really recognize all the kind of games that didn't get a huge buzz from like media and stuff this year, but we still wanted to say, hey, look, this game might have been like, you know, not the longest game, might not have been the most elaborately produced game, but there was something still really special to it. And MARE was actually the first game I reviewed all the way back at the beginning of the year. It's nearly a year ago now.
First week of January.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting, surprising experience that you would like the direct comparison to like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian is really there immediately. And I'm a huge fan of all three of those games. And I think it's often the case that developers try and like emulate that experience without really getting to the kind of rustic core that really helps it excel. And MARE is a game that not only does that, but does it very well on a quest and uses VR to just get you a bit closer to the crumbling scenery of it all. And it's essentially a point and click adventure game. The puzzling is absolutely like, look there, make that bit interact with that bit, and away we go.
Go through the motions sort of thing.
Yeah, but you won't find anything else like it on Quest or in VR in general, really. And if you haven't heard of it, if you haven't seen it before, and you're a fan of Ico and Last Guardian in particular, you should definitely check this one out.
The title that I was really fighting for was Arcsmith, but unfortunately that one did not come out on top this year. Well,
but you know, it's great. It is great just to be nominated in that category. The whole point, really, of the category was the nominations, wasn't it? To say, hey, look, here's 6 experiences that aren't really going to be able to stand toe to toe with the stuff we're going to be putting in Game of the Year, but they're definitely worth your attention, and you should check them out.
Next up, we will be listing Best VR Developer. The nominees are Beat Games, Shell Games, End Dreams, Fast Travel Games, and Resolution Games. Games. And the winner of Games. And the winner is Resolution Games. Congratulations. Resolution Games, I've been saying for a while now, my favorite developer, just generally.
Yeah. Well, this image that we have on screen which captures, I think, almost all of their projects. I'm not sure it's every one, but that really speaks for itself of, you know, for 5, 6, maybe like even 7 years now, they've been kind of like doing a lot of very accessible, very fun, casual titles that, yeah, sure, they might speak to a kind of like free-to-play-ish kind of sensibility sometimes, but especially as they've got further into their catalog of titles, they've definitely become much more elaborate and interesting experiences. And, you know, last year we were talking about like Cookout, for example, and Blast On, which, you know, Blast On is such an incredible concept for a VR game at the end of the day. Yeah, sure, it might not be like everyone's cup of tea, but a 2-player bullet hell slow-mo game is just such a cool idea. And they've really been like taking those great core concepts and trying to grow them out into their own things. And we saw that this year expand into DEMEO, which was the complete opposite end of the scale of just such a hardcore, brutal game, but so good at recapturing the feeling of classic D&D, right? And then, of course, like constant updates for those platforms. 2 free expansions for DEMEO since it launched. Whole host of updates for Blast On. Continued support in like the AR field and everything like that. So it's just been a giant year for them, but they've had several giant years, and I think it was time for it to catch up and for us to recognize that from the studio.
Absolutely. They've been consistent. I think they're one of the most consistent developers. And I think maybe the reason why I love their game so much is each of them really allows you to form your own strategies within the games. It's not just, all right, I need to go through and it's either luck or you need to get really good at it. You can just form different strategies, and it just presents so many options in their games. Yeah,
for sure. And then, like we said, Ultimate's coming next year as well. Lots coming out of that studio, recognizing a lot of great talent, and I'm glad to see them to get this one.
Absolutely. Cool. Next up is Best PC VR Game. We're getting into the last 5 categories here. Rather big categories. And the nominees are Lone Echo 2, Sweet Surrender, DEMEO, I Expect You to Die Too, and Song in the Smoke. The winner is DEMEO.
Uh-oh, getting kind of obvious. Yeah, well,
my God, I love DEMEO.
I think I think the great thing about it winning PC though is that I think I've written in one of the subsequent articles we have coming after these awards is that, you know, like the best strategy games are on PC, so it's really fitting that there's this just great PC VR strategy game that you can, as you were saying in our nominees video earlier this week. Yeah, there's a great Quest version out there, but it pops so much in the PC VR headset, and playing it with something, you know, higher resolution than the Quest 2 just completely adds to that immersion that you're going to get, because it's not that big, you know, leaning around everywhere physical experience. It's definitely one of the ones where you can have a wide experience that's pretty much just as good as the Quest 2 experience. Yeah, and I just can't wait to see what else is to come from it this year. Yeah.
I mean, the character designs are out of this world. When you really get up and close with some of the enemies, you can see some real striking features on them.
Yeah.
Terrifying almost.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is Best PSVR Game. The nominees are Fracked, Hitman 3 VR, Sniper Elite VR, I Expect You to Die 2, and Song in the Smoke. The winner is Song in the Smoke.
I'm really glad we got to get a Song in the Smoke win in there, because actually, in a lot of ways, this is definitely one of my favorite games of the year. It's just when you look across all the different platforms, there's usually one thing that beats it out for one reason or another. But, you know, if you haven't tried this yet and, you know, you like the appeal of a survival game, this is absolutely a rock solid survival game with many, many hours of content and mechanics that aren't just kind of like bolted on in terms of VR, but like really, really speak to it. So everything from like crafting by like hitting rocks together, and then, you know, things like in-depth things like camping and hunting with bow and arrow and everything like that. It's a really well thought out experience, and it's very, very well fleshed out. And something we haven't really touched on as well is it's such a brilliantly spiritualistic experience as well. Oh, yeah. I like to think of, like, there's so much amazing kind of like hallucinogenic imagery in there, and everything along that. And there's like a real tribal beating heart at the middle of it. And it took me completely by surprise when I played it first, because it was the first game from 17-bit, who are a great developer, but like I said, haven't done a VR game before. And it just blew me away how much content was in this game, the quality of that content, and the kind of understanding of what this game needed to be a VR game.
Wonderfully put.
Thank you.
Next up is Best Quest Game. So this is for both Quest 1 and 2. The nominees are Resident Evil 4 VR, DEMEO, Unplugged, A Township Tale, and Song in the Smoke. The winner is Unplugged.
That surprised everyone, didn't it? So I thought DEMEO was going to win. I voted DEMEO.
No, this had to win. It's on PC VR, but this is again the killer app for the Quest. Of course, you'd need this in there. It defines why you've got that headset, and you know, it's about the technologies. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, in the future, very much like you were saying before with Waltz of the Wizard and what Auden Dynamics do. It's very much like, oh, you know, if headsets got better, then it would be amazing to do this. Well, we're kind of there with hand tracking, and here you bloody go, Unplugged. I'm very passionate about this.
And yeah, and to your point, like, there's very few things in VR as empowering as, you know, we nominated it for most immersive moment with the soloing, so that's when you can literally just let your fingers shred. And on some songs, like the Ozzy Osbourne track on it, it just feels absolutely phenomenal. And I agree that, like, you know, while DEMEO is definitely a great experience that we've recognized in many other ways, there's something about how this game excels on Quest that really kind of encapsulates the platform. And like I said, like, I'm going to go home this Christmas, I'm going to show it to a bunch of people, because I know they're just going to instantly pick it up as much as you can pick up a game without a controller, and really get on board with it. And I really hope we get to see a lot more of Unplugged going into 2022, because I want this to be nominated for next like best DLC and best updates and stuff next year. I want to see improvements to hand tracking, hopefully on the next Oculus headset or the next Meta headset, that make it even better than it already is. I think the game has hopefully a very bright future ahead of it.
Fingers crossed. Whee, as you can. Next up, before we get on to VR Game of the Year, next up is Best Hardware. The nominees are HTC Vive Flow, VR Power 2, Varjo Aero, Decamove, and Anker Quest 2 charging dock. The winner is HTC Vive Flow.
Interesting. It's an interesting pick. I think it's been a really interesting year for VR hardware. Like we said in the nominees video earlier this week, this year has totally been more about software than it has about hardware. And if you go back and read our review that David Heaney wrote of the Vive Flow, you know, he has a lot of heavy reservations about the device and who it's really going to speak to. However, I think in terms of looking out at the landscape of different and new approaches to VR this year, you know, Varjo is a great headset, but it's a headset of brute force. There's not anything new about it so much as, you know, really high-end specs, which also comes with a completely inaccessible price point for most people. So I don't think it's really right to talk about that. And we've had some issues with distortion and stuff. And then, you know, Quest 2 accessories are great, but they're Quest 2 accessories.
Yeah.
And then, you know, even looking into HTC's own portfolio, right? The Vive Pro 2 is great, but it's super expensive. The Focus 3 is great, but it's an enterprise-based headset. Flow is a consumer headset that is looking for a different kind of audience. And it's not, you know, even necessarily for our audience, not many people are going to have that much interest in it. But I think it's a really wonderful signifier of things to come for the wider VR industry and how many, like the broad range of types of devices we can have out there one day. And for that, I think it's a very worthy winner.
Absolutely. And I love the ski mask look.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, VR Game of the Year. The nominees are Resident Evil 4 VR, DEMEO, Unplugged, I Expect You to Die Too, and Song in the Smoke. The winner is DEMEO. I mean, we've made our point. Case in point. There it is. Game of the Year. I think for many people, I don't think we're alone in that.
Yep. I agree. I was looking on Steam earlier today and I was really surprised. I think DEMEO has over like 600 user reviews on Steam. And usually it's the case that you see on Quest, a game has a lot of user reviews. And then you look over to Steam and there's a wide margin signifying that there's a wide margin in the number of people that bought it on one platform against another. But it really speaks to just how what great appeal DEMEO has in a fantastic social VR experience that, especially in the middle of this friggin' pandemic, really helps people connect in a genuine way that you're not going to have on a flat screen, you know, online game. It genuinely goes above and beyond that, and you really do feel like you're having game night with friends. And then you have at the core of it as well something that is, you know, I've often said, like, DEMEO has problems. Its difficulty is that it just throws a stupid number of enemies at you rather than actually, you know, like any kind of like sophisticated tactics. But like there's still genuine depth and intrigue to the dungeon crawling, and surprise and commiseration is all kind of intrinsically built into the experience at the end of the day. And it's not a guaranteed thing that you're going to get through every level. It's actually far more likely that you're probably going to die. And that's cool. That's a really amazing, different kind of experience. And I think it spoke to the kind of longevity the experience has had as well, that people weren't just done with it in a week. And then they were like, okay, well, that was it. Not interested anymore. You know, we kept coming back for the new expansions they put out this year. We kept coming back when they put out updates like the save game feature. And it's just a really, really fantastic indication of what makes VR special, in that, you can have something that is pretty comparable to a real life experience, but you can genuinely then have a sort of local one-on-one connection with people as you're doing it, even if you're in the US and someone else is in the UK or Europe or anywhere else in the world. And that's why VR is so special.
Fantastic. There you have it. That is our VR game of the year. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We can imagine what you guys are saying in the premiere chat and what you guys are going to say in the comments.
Some are happy. Some will be happy, I'm sure.
Some will be very, very happy. Others will be wondering where some games are. And all I can say is this has been a big year for VR. It's been a consistent year for VR. And there are many, many games that we just did not have the room or the space to mention, but have at some point on UploadVR.com. Looking forward to 2022.
Yeah, and we'll next week is all about 2022. We'll be doing a bit more looking back for coming up with some top 10 lists for things we enjoyed this year. But also, yeah, next week we'll be publishing our list of games to look forward to in 2022, and it's about a 30 or so strong list, and some of the stuff on there I'm just so excited about. So yeah, I can't wait. Get out of here, Christmas.
Among Us.
Yes, Among Us is on the list, don't worry.
Cool. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Check out UploadVR.com for all of the nominees and the winners and everything that Jamie laid out. And join us next Thursday for the VR Games Cast, the last one of the year. Perhaps we will be going over the biggest stories of the year. I think that could be fun. We'll see where we get to next week. Tune in then. All right, see you guys later.
Bye.